business as usual. Welcome back. It's another week with Walter from WalterFootball.com and the Odd Shopper channel. The two of us, myself, Eitan, Walt in the house. And if you have a little trouble seeing Walt right now, there's this shine that comes off a 5-0 week. So congratulations. I know this is business as usual for you, man. You're like, oh, come on. Am I going to get excited? I crush the books every week. But we have to mention a perfect, flawless 5-0 week for you. So congratulations. We have 5 more games to get into. We have WalterFootball.com to talk about. We have the cutting floor. So we have a lot to get to, my friend.
Yeah, hopefully another 5-0 week. It'd be great to do that again. Yeah, it's nice to go 5-0. We went, I think we went 4-1 a couple weeks ago too, but with 2-3 in between, which is like a frustrating week where he had some like bad beats. But yeah, glad to go 5-0. Let's do it again.
Love it. All right, let's begin. We have 5 games to look at, the cutting floor as well. Things that it was so close, but just didn't quite make it. We begin in Minnesota, a Saturday action here with maybe what is a surprisingly short line across the board for the Colts and Vikings.
Yeah, so a couple like last week I was talking about how the Vikings were underdogs in Detroit, and it was like the theme of like, why is this team favored? Like, this is like the hillbilly cousin of that. It's like, why is this team only favored by this number? And I think like you might think I'm crazy by saying this. In fact, like you might summon some people to take me away in a straitjacket to the mental ward near us, which I think is like on Byberry Road.
I think far from that.
Yeah, right. So I think this may sound crazy, but I don't think the Vikings are that much better than the Colts. In fact, I think they might be even. And that may sound crazy because the Colts are 4-8-1, the Vikings are 10-3, but just don't look at the records. Just look at the results and also the metrics. The Vikings in net adjusted EPA are 23rd in the NFL. The Colts are 18th. And look at how they've done against similar opponents. The Vikings the Vikings played the Eagles. They got killed. The Colts play the Eagles. They almost won. They lost by 1 point. Against the Cowboys, the Vikings got absolutely destroyed. It wasn't even close. The Colts did too, but if after 3 quarters, it was 21-19. There were a bunch of weird turnovers after that. Against the Commanders, about the same results. I know the Colts lost to them, but that was with Sam Ehlinger starting. If Matt Ryan starts that game, I think they win that game maybe. The only difference was the Patriots game. The Vikings beat them on Thanksgiving. The Colts got blown out by the Patriots, but that was another Sam Ehlinger start. So if you look at these teams, go position by position, except for quarterback and receiver. I struggle to see where the Vikings are better than the Colts. The Colts have the better run defense. They have the better running game. They have the better defense. And you're going to give me 4 points with those factors. I like the Colts. It wouldn't surprise me if they pulled the upset. But I think the most likely results of this game are Vikings by 3 and Colts by 3 in some order. And we get both of those at the +4. So I like the Colts.
Yeah, it's hard to argue. I was ready to call the big white coats, see if Dan or
just praying for good football. That's all I want. Just like decent, entertaining football.
I'm just praying for my best ball teams. I don't really care about how good the football is. I just want my best ball teams to do really well.
You think there's any
CMC?
You think there's any Purdy, Geno best ball teams in the Best Ball Mania playoffs?
I feel confident that there are not.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Stokastic NFL DFS Thursday Night Football live before lock. My name is Matt Savoca at Draftaholic, and I get to chill with my buddy Neil Orfield, the Showdown Shaman, the Showdown Goat himself. We're doing Monday Night Football, and now with a little bit of a schedule shakeup, doing Thursday Night Football for the time being as well. Two-man show. I love these, man, and hopefully this divisional matchup can provide at least some entertaining football. You guys know him, the man, the myth, the legend, at PlayerQDFS on Twitter, Neil Orfield. What's going on, man?
I mean, like I was saying, after our mics went live, I'm sure people heard. All I'm really caring about here. I mean, I care about my showdown lineups too, but I really care about my best ball that I've been. We're finally in the playoffs of best ball now. Just 1 out of I think 12 advance on underdog. It's exciting times for those of us who grinded all summer. Drafted a ton of best ball teams. Mm-hmm. Now finally we get the payoff of seeing them all die.
So what you're saying is you're kind of stacking the needs that you have in these games. Not only do you have your DFS lineups that, remember to get these in because this one locks at 7:15 your time, Neil. But those best ball teams, it gets real tough this week. Isn't it they changed the format slightly so this week in particular is more ruthless than last year, or did I make that up?
I don't think so. Maybe. I don't remember what the format was last year. I know this year on Underdog, so in the best ball, what do you call it? Best Ball Mania 3, 1 out of 12 teams advance. I don't remember if that was the case last year as well, but you're in a group of 12, and I think just the top team advances. So yeah, it is pretty ruthless, but I'm not sure if it's different from last year.
Okay. All right. There you go. And, we've got plenty of shows on the Stokastic DFS channel to help you out in that area, but we got to dig into this one. San Francisco and Seattle, 43-point total. This came down during the day. I saw it earlier at 43.5. Look, I get it. Brock Purdy's banged up, but he's in there. Seattle's been up and down as an offense. Not a whole lot in terms of unexpected inactives, but the expected inactives are still significant, right? Deebo Samuel completely changes the offense when you don't have him on the field. Obviously, no Jimmy Garoppolo. On the Seattle side, you have no DJ Dallas. That's less important. But just how significant is the loss of Deebo Samuel to this San Francisco team?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty significant. They have so many weapons that it maybe isn't as significant as it would be to some other teams out there. But yeah, I mean, Deebo is a versatile player. He's a star running back, a star wide receiver. It obviously hurts to lose Deebo, but Christian McCaffrey, I mean, not a bad receiver or running back himself. So I think the Niners are going to be just fine. I really like the Niners as a team, as a potential Super Bowl contender here. I think that even with Brock Purdy, I think people are writing them off, and I think that they might have a shot. Obviously, we don't really care about that for this game in particular, but I think it's a fun team that I'm going to be kind of monitoring throughout the playoffs because I think that they got a shot.
It's crazy that they can lose 2 quarterbacks and still have a legitimate chance in the NFC this year. I mean, hats off to Purdy, but also hats off to just the type of team that they've built in San Francisco that can take on any opponent. It helps to have a championship level defense, but it also helps to have a fantastic offensive line. And just do the thought experiment, guys. If this team just had, or if any team had a combination of Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, and George Kittle as their 3 primary skill position players, and a solid offensive line and a great coach, you'd be like, well, it's a pretty darn good team. I'd like it at least. You know what else oh, go ahead, Neil.
I would say, yeah, it's a great team. Just agreeing with you.
Yeah. And you know what else I would like is if you guys could hit the like button as well. Already seeing upwards of 600, 700 people coming in as we get started, almost an hour till kickoff at this point. But, Neil, at this point, 50 likes, we expect this kind of stuff. And we know that we can get a lot higher. We can certainly get to 100. But I honestly think that 200 likes, 250 likes, Neil, is that crazy tonight?
I don't think it's crazy. I think that our audience is very capable hitting the like button. Yeah, I think we're going to get to, I would guess 300. I'm going for 300 is the goal here. I'm not going to allow an NFL football player to run me over for 300 likes, like you were calling for the other week.
I think we said 3,000.
We did say 3,000. So
okay.
3,000 maybe I'll allow it, but 300 I don't think I'm doing it. But I think we can get there.
Someone did actually tweet it out that we want to see it.
I saw that.
Immediately went to social media. That's the dream, right? Guys, it always helps if you tell your friends, word of mouth. But, you check our Stokastic social media. We tweet out these shows. If you don't want to hit the like button, that's too hard. Yeah, hit the share button as well. Helps spread the word about what we're doing. And yeah, I think we could get there, Neil. I really do. Lofty, he turned it on me. He was like, open it up, put it on mute, and make sure you liked it. And I was like, you're right. I haven't liked it yet. So you too, Neil.
I haven't liked it either. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. See, we got one more right there. All right. From a game environment standpoint, we kind of know what to expect. Divisional matchup in the NFC West. The Seahawks run defense is among the worst in the NFL. That's a recipe for disaster when you're playing the San Francisco 49ers. 26th in Football Outsiders rush DVOA and 28th in yards per carry. They're not good against the pass either, below average in those same two stats. As you said, I think Brock Purdy can absolutely be successful. You think the San Francisco 49ers just stick to their game plan typically and just run and run and run tonight?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, against the Seahawks team in particular, I think that it's the most likely outcome that they just run them into the ground. I mean, the Seahawks are 26th against the run in terms of rush DVOA. They are 18th against the pass as well. So the 49ers can probably do whatever they want, but they've got a rookie quarterback and they've got Christian McCaffrey. I think the likeliest outcome here is that they're going to be running a lot with Christian McCaffrey. Do you agree with that assessment?
I mean, look, you can make large field tournament cases for the Jordan Masons of the world, but when Deebo Samuel is out, the most rational response is give Christian McCaffrey his touches. Just make it happen. Yep. Because he's so versatile. They're already using him in so many different ways, out wide, in the slot, in the backfield. Just find ways to get him touches. And if there's anyone in the offensive NFL mind sphere that I trust to do it, it's Kyle Shanahan. So I think we will see some wrinkles, and I don't think we see a Seattle defense capable of fully stopping this team. The only thing I'm concerned about is them being so efficient in the first half that they just don't have to put on the burners to have huge ceiling performances. But I honestly think you get at least one ceiling performance out of CMC, George Kittle, and Brandon Ayuk tonight. This Seattle defense is worse and giving up big plays.
Yeah, I agree with you. It seems very likely that one of these guys is going to put up a big game because I think that this San Francisco offense is going to be able to move the ball, and they've got all that star power. I think one of them is going to have a big game here.
And then on the other side, you can't say enough good things about the defensive line of the San Francisco 49ers. Maybe the Eagles, when healthy, have an equally strong defensive line, but I'm not really sure. Football Outsiders absolutely loves this team. Second against the rush, fifth against the pass. They're number one in the NFL, the toughest team to run against in yards per carry. And they're eighth in yards per pass attempt allowed. It doesn't mean Geno can't succeed. We'll get there in a minute, Neil. But how in the world is Seattle supposed to keep things closer or just score in general?
It's going to be tough. I mean, yeah, Geno can obviously succeed because he has Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, and they're great players. And Kenneth Walker, I think, is a very skilled running back. They're a skilled offense. Geno's been playing great this year, so they can do it. But man, it is not easy to run on the San Francisco team. Not easy to throw on them either. It's going to be a struggle.
There are continuing injuries in the defensive backfield for the San Francisco 49ers. That's really the only concern here. I think there is certainly a point at which they lose so many players at the cornerback position where it becomes a problem. I'm just not convinced we're there yet. The big play potential from Lockett, Metcalf is there, but it's really tough to see unless they're in full comeback effort because they're down multiple scores and they just kind of pile up garbage time points. So you know what question's coming up next, Neil, as I finish out this game environment segment every time. 50 points. That's all it would take in this game. A total combined points of 50 for this game to go 7 points over its implied total. Just off the top of your head, what are the percentage chances you think this game could go to that 50-point total or more?
18%. I don't think it's like it's on the lower end here for me. How about you?
So lower than a quarter of the time. If you were to play this slate out, say 100 or 1,000 times, you say lower than a quarter of the time, and lower than a fifth of the time, it would happen.
Yep.
Yeah, I might be up at the 22 to 25 range just because of the creativity of the offense and the big playability that we've seen at times from Geno and company, but it's not as high as we've seen. That's for sure. I'd certainly like it though from a football fan standpoint.
Yeah.
And my best ball teams as well would enjoy it. Speaking of what I'm enjoying right now, guys, we've blown past the 150 mark already. I think this 300 like goal is very legitimate. We're going to check in a little bit later. But right now, before we dig into this team by team breakdown, I want to talk to you about one of the best offers we've had in a long time. BetMGM is partnering with us to offer 2 months free of Stokastic Plus Platinum. And you also get a risk-free bet over at BetMGM up to $1,000, meaning no matter how risky the bet you make, up to $1K in that bet, they'll give you money in your account equal to that first bet. And when you make a $10 money line bet, a pregame money line bet, after you click the link in the video description below, once that bet settles, you can get 2 free months of the Stokastic Plus Platinum membership. And I promise you that picture of Eric does not come with the membership. So you don't have to worry about that. But other than that, you get access to absolutely everything, every single sport as well, the lineup generator tools, the player compare tools, the top stacks, the boom bust tool, things you always hear Neil and I talking about. And again, all it takes is you clicking the link, paying $10 on a pregame money line bet, having that bet settle. And then, guys, the possibilities are endless. You could eventually get paid a ton to start this promo. So get into the action. It's definitely moving down to 1 free month sooner rather than later. So get those 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum today. All right, Neil, we start with the San Francisco 49ers. And I thank you, Mike. I realized on the show sheet, I actually had the scores mixed up, but you fixed it. You're my hero. And the sidebar is correct. Let's talk about Brock Purdy, man. He's looked better than I expected. He stayed in the pocket, taking some huge hits, but as you said, he clearly looks capable within this offense. What are we doing with him in DFS tonight?
Yeah, Brock Purdy is pretty interesting. So currently in my latest crunch, what do I have? I've got 33% in the util plus 19.5% in the captain spot. I don't know where I'm going to end up on Brock Purdy. He's an interesting play. Just looking through his college season log, he was a pretty good rusher in college, and that accounts for that doesn't factor in that. His rushing stats from college, where he was rushing for some seasons more than 30 yards per game. That includes negative yards for sacks in college football stats. So, anytime he was sacked, he lost. So really, he was even better than 30 yards per game by NFL metrics some of those seasons in college. He even had his sophomore season in college had 8 rushing touchdowns. So, he by his senior year, he only rushed for like 240 yards, and the rushing seemed to come down a bit, but he's capable. I mean, we saw him in the last game. He looked like he was moving around pretty mobile out there. He scored a touchdown on the ground. So pretty interesting there. I did hear, and I don't remember where, it might have been actually Gajewski on the morning show. Somewhere I heard that Shanahan said something along the lines of he'll be able to play. His rib injury might affect his mobility. So I heard that somewhere, and I tried to look it up. I was Googling today and could not find that quote anywhere. So I'm not sure if that is correct. And I don't know if it was Gajewski or who said that, but I thought I heard that somewhere. So that is one thing that maybe gives me a little bit of pause, but I don't think currently I'm not factoring in all that much. I have some interest in Brock Purdy. He's got some rushing upside. He's got all these weapons, and he's got a great matchup with this Seahawks defense. So I do have some interest in the 9,600 Brock Purdy, 7th round rookie. Not generally a guy that you want to be playing, but the matchup's right. He looked pretty good last week, and add in the mobility and all of his weapons. I think that he's a pretty interesting play.
76% completion percentage, 8.8 yards per attempt. Highly respectable numbers against Tampa Bay. He didn't have to throw that often, only threw 21 times. And, part of that is just how stifling that defense is. And Tom Brady on the other side doing absolutely nothing. I think it's hard to imagine unless, I guess it's possible Seattle just completely sells out to stop the run and San Francisco has to adjust. But it's really hard for me to see more than 250, 275 yards passing for Brock Purdy. Yep. So it really comes down to rushing upside. We've already seen 1 rushing touchdown this year. Not an insane amount of volume, 2.2 carries per game. That's not nothing, but it's not what we really love to see, like the 7 to 8 range is, the elite level. It could happen. It could absolutely happen. But look, we're burying the lead here because Christian McCaffrey is going to be the engine of this offense today. Am I wrong here? And even as expensive as he is, from a point per dollar standpoint, we were talking about this beforehand. There are very, very few players who look better than Christian McCaffrey from a value standpoint, let alone a floor and ceiling projection standpoint.
Yeah, as Gajewski mentioned on the morning show, as I mentioned in my article, there's a gap of 7 fantasy points between Christian McCaffrey and the next player on this slate. Oof. And then if you exclude Geno, if you exclude quarterbacks, let's go to skill position players. There's a 10-point gap between Christian McCaffrey and the next highest projected player on this slate. He's a smash play, and he's involved in the passing game, so he's kind of got a high floor just because he's probably going to have a number of receptions, and then of course if they get up, they're probably at least until late in the game they're probably going to be running it out with him. So the floor is high, the ceiling is high. Really, the only concern, I mean, obviously he can fail. There are ways for it to fail, but the biggest concern is always a potential injury with Christian McCaffrey. But we haven't really seen that as an issue this year as it has been.
Don't you dare! Don't you put that out in the world, Neil.
I apologize for putting that out there. I mean,
especially
I need him. I really
after 2 vintage McCaffrey days, right?
Yeah.
Where 27 total opportunities in week 13, including 10 targets, chef's kiss. 14 carries and 3 targets was all he needed to have 153 total yards last week. Number 2 overall running back performance. And he's up there once again with the best running backs in the league in terms of opportunities per game. Once again with the San Francisco 49ers. I only expect this to go up from the 18.9 total opportunities, that's targets and rushes per game, that he's had over the last 8 weeks. I honestly think 25 opportunities should be the expectation here. Rational coaching says it could be even more if it's working.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the upside for volume is there, and even without volume, just the efficiency is so high with Christian McCaffrey. What else do we really need to say about Chris? I think everybody knows who Christian McCaffrey is. If he plays a full game, he's going to be a crushing kind of player. He can just absolutely destroy the slate. So not much more we need to say about him. He's probably going to have the opportunities, and assuming that he does, he's probably going to go off.
Don't even put that in. I see you, producer Mike. That's pretty darn good.
I missed whatever's going on. Oh, is it the don't put that evil on me, Ricky? Okay, yeah.
I saw some love earlier for Jordan Mason in the chat. The man's been efficient on limited touches, and by limited I mean middling, right? 11 carries, 8 carries the week before that, not involved whatsoever in the passing game. So this is clearly what Ben, Rasa, and Laffy love to call a decimal back.
Yep.
Unless we're getting in the end zone, we're fighting over 5.6 versus 6.8 points most of the time when we sim out this slate. But do you have any love for Jordan Mason? The salary is okay on DraftKings, not really, really low.
Yeah, he's 4,800 on DraftKings, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I mean, we've seen it work out multiple times, right? Over the past couple of weeks, we've seen Benny Snell come in for Najee Harris when he left for the game. And then in just the last game, we saw Ramondre Stevenson get hurt. Both Pierre Strong and Kevin Harris came in and scored touchdowns. There are ways for these backup running backs to get there. And Jordan Mason, I think that he should have opportunity regardless of whether there is an injury, but he has extra. So as you said, he played 30% of snaps in the last game. He actually saw 11 carries in that game. I mean, that's not bad for a backup running back. For a 4,800 player to get 11 carries, we wouldn't be upset about that. And then throw in he's the backup. He's probably the guy who comes in if Christian McCaffrey gets hurt. I'm not putting that evil out in the world. I'm just giving you scenarios. I'm not hoping for it. Hopefully that doesn't happen. I need Christian McCaffrey to smash, but if it does happen, that will benefit Jordan Mason. And then of course, the better scenario, Christian McCaffrey could just crush it through 3 quarters. The 49ers are up 3 touchdowns and they decide to run out the game with Jordan Mason instead of Christian McCaffrey. So even without that evil scenario, there are outs for Jordan Mason. So at 4,800, I mean, he's unlikely to get there, right? We need to accept that he's probably not going to score many fantasy points. He's probably not paying off this $4,800 price tag, but at 7.5% ownership, I think that's efficient ownership. I think that seems about right when you factor in injuries and that kind of stuff. Pulling up our single game tool, it looks like it's way over owned. So based on our simulations, it's not efficient ownership. So we have him projected to be 0.2% owned in the captain spot, 0.4% optimal, and projected for in the util 7.5% ownership, 2.2% optimal. I will say, so I don't know if this is the case for.
So if you have the guts to play him in the captain spot in a large field, it looks like it's a leverage spot, but just a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you play him in the captain spot, a little bit of positive leverage there. I'll also say, and I don't know, I'm not involved in our sims, right? I don't know how they work. I don't know the limits to what they can do. I know that I've heard Justin Freeman of Run the Sims say that it's very difficult to account for injuries and like different those kinds of scenarios in running sims. So maybe it's not entirely like doesn't factor in that added out of a potential injury situation. And I don't know, our sims might factor that in. It doesn't happen frequently enough that it's a huge factor either way, but maybe in addition to that, and then also as I've said before, our sims don't put any kind of salary limitation on. So maybe, if you limit yourself to lineups that leave at least $1,000 on the table, well, then maybe he becomes optimal more frequently than 2.2%, which, take that for what it's worth. Obviously, people are going to be playing lineups using the full salary. So it doesn't matter all that much. But for those of us who are trying to, limit the number of duplicates, maybe he's still a better play than a 2.2% chance of succeeding.
And just remember, guys, like, we've seen 2% outcomes hit all the time. We've seen 0.1% outcomes hit all the time. You just need to know what you're getting into. That's what the tools are here for. That's what, that's what we're trying to quantify. So you understand the risk that you're taking. Not saying you can't take the risk, just understanding it is more important.
Yep. Very well
You got
said.
any love for Juice, Kyle Juszczyk, or Tevin Coleman? Both of them in the 1 to 2, I guess 2.5 point projection range tonight. Kyle Juszczyk could be used creatively here, but obviously a blocker. And he's not actually that cheap. He's $3K compared to Jordan Mason's $4,800. At least Tevin Coleman's, kind of down there at $1,400.
Yeah, Tevin Coleman. So I have not really given much thought to Tevin Coleman. He hasn't played since week 6. So I think that he is active, right? He wasn't named in the inactive, so I guess he's active in this game, but I don't think I'm playing Tevin Coleman. Juszczyk, we saw in the most recent game, played 65% of snaps. That's the most he's played all year. Of course, second most was 64%, so it's not like this is a huge jump for him, but relative to, since the bye week, he's 38%, 43%, 55% in week 13, and then 65% in the most recent game. Maybe they need to get a little bit more creative now without Debo, and Kyle Juszczyk, I think, would benefit if they do need to get creative. So I do have some interest in Juszczyk. Obviously, the $3,000 price tag isn't the best. I would obviously prefer to have him at 1,000 or, somewhere in that kind of range where a single touchdown is likelier to pay it off. But we've seen Juszczyk have spike weeks in the past, not so much this year, but in terms of like targets where he's more involved in the passing game. Wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world to see him get a little bit more usage in the passing game. Of course, with Brock Purdy, I'm not sure they're going to be throwing as much anyway, but I think that Juszczyk is a fine play at 3,000. I think that he has that upside. He doesn't have, I don't think he has a very likely high, doesn't have a high likelihood of breaking a slate. Like, I think that we'd be more likely to see Jordan Mason break the slate just because even if Christian McCaffrey gets hurt, or even if there is blowout run, Kyle Juszczyk isn't the guy. They're not using him as a halfback. He's still just the fullback. He's probably not going to get too many touches, but I think that he's steady. He should have some opportunities, and he is a kind of a touchdown or bust kind of play, I would say, generally. Maybe you could spike an upside in terms of like 5 catches or something. Wouldn't be the biggest surprise in the world, but not a high confidence play. I think the 6.5% ownership on Juszczyk looks about right to me. In our sims, again, that looks over-owned in our sims. 6.5% projected ownership, 0.8% chance of being optimal according to our sims. And then he actually has negative leverage in the captain spot as well. 0.2% projected ownership, 0.1% chance of being optimal. But just looking at, from the opportunity standpoint, he's out on the field more snaps than he's not, and he does get targeted at least once every game. And it wouldn't be shocking to see a spike there. So I think he's playable.
Okay. I mean, look, Juszczyk ironically gets more routes run per game than Jordan Mason right now. But, we're probably looking at, if we're lucky, 4 to 5, maybe 6 total opportunities, rushes, and targets. That can happen if he falls in the end zone. But again, we're talking about that usage and a 3K salary, not a 600 salary or something like that, where it would be highly appealing if that were the case.
Yep.
Let's open it up to the wide receiver and the tight end position. And we got a super chat from Vinny C. What's up, man? Good to see you, Vinny C. Long time member of the Stokastic crew. Just got here. Might not be the most etiquette-approved question. You were pretty good. You were a little bit ahead, but we were ready to roll. I saw you. We're gonna start off a little bit down the board. Ross Dwelly, 2 weeks of positive fantasy performances came when wide receiver or running back deficiencies for San Francisco's weeks 2 and 8. Is that a good punt?
We have a 0 fantasy point projection for Ross Dwelly. So I have not given any thought to Ross Dwelly. Generally, players don't get on my radar unless I read something about them maybe being active or they have some kind of projection. We don't have any projection for Ross Dwelly. I'm curious if he's active for this game. I don't think he was on the inactives, but let me see. He hasn't played in the past few weeks. So he was inactive on December 11th. And he was not on the inactives, as I recall, today.
Okay. This is interesting. So he's going to be a low probability play, but maybe we right now have him factored out of the lineup. But if he does play, he typically plays between 4 and 20% of the snaps and runs between 2 and maybe 8 or 9 routes. So you're really hoping for like 2 or 3 targets. That is fine in a 1-game slate as a punt play. If you believe that's his opportunity share, even if you don't have an exact projection in our tools, and we'll probably get him updated one more time before lock here, but that level of possible opportunity makes him large field viable. It's just really hard to tell when he hasn't played since week 12.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to factor in, how likely he is to succeed here. I'm searching Twitter right now, so we've got plus 4,600 for a TD for Ross Dwelly in this game. It looks like, suggests that he's probably going to play. Is he the top tight end for Kittle or the top backup for Kittle? I'm not confident that Ross Dwelly is going to see the field, but he wasn't scratched. He was a healthy scratch a week ago. Now he is active, or I should say he was a healthy scratch 4 days ago. Now he is active. I would say I don't have a ton of confidence. He was DNP coach's decision on December 11th, 4 days ago. Maybe they're holding him out now. Now maybe he's got fresh legs. Maybe they do run him out there. So there is a case to be made there. But we've got a projection of 0 for Ross Dwelly. I'm not really expecting anything from him.
All right. Now some of the more usual suspects. We got Ayuk, who's obviously stepping into a big role here, and Kittle. They are the expected stars after Christian McCaffrey, of course, but we may see an array of players being used. And I mean an array of players, because Ray McLeod looks pretty good in our tools. We also have Juwan Jennings. There's a lot of San Francisco 49ers to choose from if you're playing large field tournaments and mass multi-entering.
Yeah, obviously you start with Ayuk. He is the wide receiver.
The tight ends
one
in there. Sorry, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it's Kittle and Ayuk at the top. We know who those guys are. We know that we want to play some Kittle and Ayuk. Ayuk has been playing, 78% of snaps in the most recent game was the least he's played all season. But I'm not concerned that it's like a dip. I think that was just a situational thing because they crushed Tampa Bay. Ayuk is the wide receiver 1 for the Niners. Probably should see more volume with no Debo this week. He's a great play in a great matchup. Kittle, same thing. He, played fewer snaps in the last game. I'm not concerned about that. He is out there for every meaningful snap just about for the Niners. Also should benefit in terms of target share with no Debo. So those two are the pretty clear 1 and 2. It's interesting that Juwan Jennings seems to have been taking a back seat recently. He for a while was looking like he was kind of the wide receiver 3 recently. I guess maybe I was overestimated how much he was playing earlier in the year, because he hasn't been playing all that much since 60% of snaps in week 1. He typically plays between 30 and 40% of snaps, and he wasn't really the one to benefit from Debo being out in the most recent game. He only played 35% of snaps. Ray McLeod was the one who benefited more. He went from 10%, 14%, 10%, 8% of snaps to the last game. He played 44% of snaps. So he clearly was the wide receiver who benefited the most from Debo being out. Of course, we can't confidently say that that's going to be the case again. Now we have another week of practice, we have another 4 days of practice. We at least have the 49ers, sometimes these injuries happen in game, and teams obviously don't entirely plan for injuries to happen in game. So sometimes what they do during that game doesn't reflect what is going to happen going forward.
That's a good point.
But I do think that it's the likeliest outcome that Ray McLeod is going to be I can't even say that. I think that Ray McLeod and Juwan Jennings are going to be are kind of interchangeable for me in terms of like who is likeliest to be the wide receiver 2 in this game. I don't have a strong take one way or the other here. I think that both are going to be on the field a good amount, probably over 40% of snaps. We have Jawan Jennings projected better than Ray McLeod. Ray McLeod jumps out because he is cheaper than Jawan Jennings. We have Jawan Jennings, he's 3,600. Ray McLeod is just 1,200. So Ray McLeod jumps out in the tools as being a great value play. But Jawan Jennings solid as well. Probably going to get overlooked. We actually looking at Jawan Jennings in our sims. In the captain spot, 3.3% projected ownership, 4.7% chance of being optimal. And then in the util, 19.3% projected ownership, 23% chance of being optimal. I kind of like him in part because I think people are going to be playing Ray McLeod more because he's the guy who looked great in the last game. He got more snaps and he's cheaper. So I think Ray McLeod gets a little bit more of a spike in ownership, and Jawan Jennings might not quite see that same spike as Ray McLeod. But Ray McLeod also looks incredible. He actually looks better in our tools. Ray McLeod, we have at 4.1% projected ownership in the captain spot, 7.2% chance to be an optimal. And then the util, 23% projected ownership, 33% chance to be an optimal. So very nice positive leverage on Ray McLeod. I just have some concern that people are going to say, hey, wait, who is the wide receiver 2 behind Ayuk here? I want to play the wide receiver 2 against this Seahawks defense and see that Ray McLeod played more snaps last game and maybe play more Ray McLeod. But who knows if that's going to happen? That's kind of what I anticipate happening, is that to some extent, Jawan Jennings might get lost in the shuffle, but that could be wrong because I think other people might have the same memory as me of Jawan Jennings being the wide receiver 3 earlier in the year.
Yeah, that's possible. And look, I think when you have a player like Deebo Samuel out of the lineup, you just have to utilize different players differently. And while I'm looking at the game logs for George Kittle and I'm seeing since week 10, 2 targets, 6 targets, 4 targets, 3 targets, 5 targets, that just has to shift. And I do think one of Ray McLeod or Jawan Jennings gets up to that 8 or 9 opportunity game like Deebo Samuel was consistently getting to. Do they get up to 10, 12, 14 opportunities? Only if they're hyper efficient. That's the reason you get up to that level, in my opinion. But I do think that this middling area of opportunity, 3 to 5, is going to pop up to 9 for somebody here. And so taking my chances on one of these players is fine. Obviously, there are different salary ranges. I still want to get to Kittle. I still think that might be a player that a young quarterback who needs check down options. Obviously, you have CMC as a check down option. He's made some nice throws already to Kittle. I just like to see Kittle come alive. Except for that Arizona game, it's kind of been a disappointing season. Finish out these skill position players with your feelings about Kittle. And, if you got a favorite from this bunch of wide receivers and tight ends, maybe you can let the people know.
Yeah, I mean, Kittle, I'm on the same page as you. I want to play a lot of Kittle. I think that he should see more opportunities. Of course, we've got the narrative of the rookie quarterbacks often like to target the big tight end. It's a safe target for rookie quarterbacks. So maybe that benefits Kittle somewhat. There is some chance that they just don't really throw the ball all that much, which obviously does not help Kittle. But I think that they're going to be throwing a fair amount anyway. So yeah, I like Kittle quite a bit. I'm trying to get over the field on Kittle. I don't think I'm playing any Tyler Kroft. That was an interesting point about Ross Dwelly. I currently am not planning on playing him. I don't think that's going to change before lock, but I guess it's sort of interesting if you think that he's going to see the field. I'm not that confident that Ross Dwelly is going to see the field, but if you are, I think he's an interesting play. Yeah, we talked about Ray McLeod, Jawan Jennings. Danny Gray, I guess, is sort of interesting. Played 21% of snaps in the most recent game. Not going to get much ownership, 4.5% projected ownership at $200 price tag. I mean, what does it take? One touchdown to pay off that $200 price tag for Danny Gray, depending on obviously how the rest of the game goes. That might not pay it off, but it's sort of interesting. He might see the field more than we expect, and even if he just plays the 21% of snaps that he played in the last game, maybe that was a blowout time. So I actually don't know how to look up whether that was in blowout. Because they did blow out the Bucks in the last game. Maybe that's the only reason that Danny Gray saw that
higher snap share. He still only ran 2 routes, so he was really blocking is what you can look at. So it points to it probably being garbage time, but he's really, really fast, and he's really, really cheap. So Danny Gray is a fine punt play today. I think that pretty much sums up the San Francisco 49ers pretty well for today. I definitely want to talk to you guys about this offer from No House Advantage, because not only do they have a great platform, not only are they offering overlay pretty much every single night, but they have a offer where we can give you a first match deposit bonus up to $50. They have a new versus the house mode, which if you're used to like traditional prop betting, this is pretty much like that. You can test your skills, get up to 20x your money when you hit all of your picks. They've got the NFL, NBA, PGA, MMA, and NASCAR. Let's do an overlay check real quick. Let's see. The big $15 contest is at 49% full at less than half an hour till kickoff. And the NFL $5 2K play action pass, 2K to first, 49%. Hey, they don't have to give this overlay, you know, like they know the numbers, Neil. Like you just won't see overlay like this on FanDuel and DraftKings, and it's so important when you're bankroll building. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean that's the kind of thing that you really need to take advantage of when you're bankroll building in particular. I mean, you should be taking advantage of it even if you do have a bankroll, because it's a better opportunity than anything else you can find in the industry. When you can find guaranteed overlay, yeah, you got to take advantage of that kind of thing.
It's great. And you just sign up with the link below. First match deposit bonus of $50. You're going to like the way you play over there. And they got the tools over at Stokastic.com to help you take it down. A really cool format as well. It's the same stats, the same everything you know from DFS. It's just a little slightly different format. It's really cool what they got going on over there. Check it out in the video description below. We move over to the Seattle Seahawks. Geno Smith, man. Look, overall this season, it's been impressive. He probably has earned the right to play for a starting job next year as well. He had before last week against Carolina, where they disappointed, 264 pass yards last week. The weeks before that, 328 and 367 passing yards. He's been over 20 fantasy points in 4 out of the last 5 weeks, and in that 1 week he didn't. He had 19 fantasy points. The man puts up points. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I got something in my throat right as I was about to start. Yeah, exactly. You just shocked me right there. Yeah, Geno Smith has had hell of a year. What else can we say about Geno Smith? He surprised everybody, and he looks great tonight. We've got him just looking at our single game tool, 8.2% projected ownership in the captain spot, 8.2% chance of being optimal, and then the util, 42.5% projected ownership, 46.3% chance of being optimal. So it's a terrible matchup. Like, you can't ask for much of a worse matchup than this 49ers defense, but he's just been crushing it all year. And our sims seem to suggest that there's a pretty good chance, there's a greater than 50% chance that he's going to have another good game here against this tough Niners defense. Obviously has great weapons in Metcalf and Lockett. Yeah, I mean, he looks fine. I'm not trying to take a huge stand on Geno. I feel not that confident in the play just because of the matchup with the Niners, but I'm still going to be right around the field. That's obviously our sims love him. The price is fine. I'm just going to try to stick right around where the field is, where the field is right about 50% there. That's probably about how much I'd like him in my lineups.
I think that's fair. And it's okay. Sometimes when we don't have a good read on this, we just use the ownership projections and stay with the field, right? If we feel like it's rational ownership, we just kind of use that as our guide. And we say this every single showdown slate. He's a quarterback. It's a 1-game slate. San Francisco in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the position, which just adjusts fantasy points allowed, but for the offenses they played, so teams don't get burned when they play, Travis Kelce twice in 3 weeks or something like that. Look, they're 14th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the quarterback. They're an elite defense, no doubt about it, and that pass rush is coming. But quarterbacks can put up points, whether that's garbage time or in a losing effort. He looks good in our tools. He's a solid value. Obviously, you can play him at captain. Not much else to say, really. You can fade him if you like. I just don't think that's the optimal choice. How about Kenneth Walker, though? I mean, I think this is the bigger question of the day. Like, do we go right back to the Kenneth Walker well? His expected fantasy points when he was healthy looked fantastic. One of the best values on the slate. If you just look at an opportunity value per dollar, what are you doing with Kenneth Walker? He's not 100% most likely.
Yeah, it's really interesting because he's only 7,600. So like the price is right. He doesn't project that far behind the receivers on his team, Metcalf and Lockett. They project only slightly better than him at significantly higher price tags. So like he looks like a great point per dollar play. Is the point in his favor there? As you said, he's maybe not 100%. Hard to really know what his exact status is, which scares me a little bit. Like I don't want to go all in, have a ton of Kenneth Walker, but like I said, the price is right. And then, of course, the matchup also scares me. I think that's kind of the bigger thing. Those two factors, the matchup against the Niners, plus a little bit banged up. It's not a high confidence play for me, but the price is right where he doesn't need to have a ceiling game to pay off this price tag on a showdown slate. I mean, if he gets 12 points, 14 points, like doesn't need to go completely off to pay off the price tag. He's also not extremely involved in the passing game, like 2.5, 3 targets per game so far this year. He did have one where he had 8 targets in a game. So it is, within the range of outcomes that he could spike an upside through the air. We can hope for that. Hopefully, I mean, this is the kind of game where they get behind. Maybe he gets 8 targets, and that would be certainly helpful. And at his 7,600 price tag, I mean, maybe he doesn't even need to score a touchdown necessarily. But yeah, I'm a little bit wary of it just because of the matchup with the Niners, but at the same time, you got to accept that he's a little bit too cheap for the skill level and for the opportunities. I think that he's pretty clearly the top running back here, assuming that he's not playing hurt, which we've seen it happen a few times already this year where players come in, they're on the actives list. We saw it with T. Higgins this past week. T. Higgins was active and then didn't play at all. So it scares me a little bit, but I don't think that's the case with Kenneth Walker. I think he's playing this game. I think he's the lead back. The biggest scary thing is the matchup with the Niners, and then of course being a little bit banged up. Maybe he plays a little bit less than we'd like him to.
I think you can guarantee a solid 7 to 9 rushes right into the back of the guards.
Yep.
But if he bounces one and he breaks a tackle or two, he's one of the most athletic backs in the NFL right now. I said it. These rookie running backs with a little bit less wear and tear on them, especially ones with 96th percentile speed scores like Kenneth Walker. This dude's a burner. This guy's a baller when healthy. There are obvious concerns, but there are very few, if any, players that we can guarantee the level of workload for tonight, especially on the Seattle side, and that makes him at least viable, particularly from a floor standpoint, like if you're thinking about cash games or multiplier games tonight. Any other running backs that you're looking at? We got DJ Dallas inactive. So what does that do to how you're playing running back? Are you playing anyone other than Kenneth Walker?
I think it's pretty thin. I believe Tony Jones, is he inactive as well? Maybe I'm wrong about that. But either way, I don't think I'm playing Tony Jones. I think Travis Homer would be the next man up.
Jones,
he's 7,000. Yeah. He's inactive, so it'd just be Travis Homer, probably the only other running back you're considering here. And he's 7,000. They priced him up like he's still the starting running back, or I guess they maybe priced him up when it was still questionable who was going to be the starting running back. And at 7,000, I mean, it could happen. Like it would have to take a Kenneth Walker injury early in the game, like we saw with Ramondre, but still, it's going to be difficult for Travis Homer to pay off the 7,000 price tag against the San Francisco defense. So I don't think I'm going there. I don't think that I would recommend it. In a large field GPP, you could consider it at the 5.5% ownership, in part because I suspect that it comes in even lower than that. But I'm not planning on going there with Travis Homer.
It's pretty nice. I mean, look at this pretty nice super chat we got. I'm looking at the pretty nice amount of likes we got. We blew past 250, Neil. I knew we could do it. You knew we could do it. But now, honestly, with 1,300 people in here, I think we could get past 300. Maybe we could push it. If you came in the middle of the show, appreciate you hitting the like button, maybe getting all the way to 400. I know. It's a little bit ambitious, but I think we could do it. And maybe the nicest of all is Steve Schuster with the super chat. Our 5-1 San Francisco heavy builds in play tonight. Yeah, $10.69.
I mean, that is a very nice super chat. Thank you, Steve. And yeah, it's absolutely in play. I mean, I think that those are going to be maybe even a little bit popular lineups just because it's such a good matchup for the Niners and such a bad matchup for the Seahawks that I think you're not going to be the only one playing that type of construction, but absolutely in play here. And you can even, in your 5 Niners, you could even consider including that Niners defense. I think that there are a number of plays that I like from the Niners, and I think they can certainly get there. So I don't mind that kind of build at all.
And then a super chat from Zachary as well. Sorry about the little delay there, man. Seattle stack with CMC, Geno Goodwin. We're going to get to them in a minute. Or Geno Myers. And he's talking about FanDuel's single entry.
Okay. Sorry. Can you say that again?
So he's doing a Seattle stack with CMC. And now he wants to know who you would like to stack in terms of low probability plays. Obviously, we'll break this down a little further in a minute. Geno Goodwin or Geno Myers for FanDuel's single entry?
I mean, Goodwin, you have the positive leverage there. Or sorry, you have correlation with Goodwin. Myers, I mean, there's, I guess, some correlation with the kicker, but
yeah, so there's just scoring correlation.
Yeah, scoring correlation, but I think it'd probably be Goodwin for me. I think, Goodwin actually projects fairly well. He projects like a guy who has an opportunity to score at least. And he's obviously a bit of a burner as well. He can score a big splash play. So I think it'd be Goodwin for me. Although I will say, so Sanders, I think, is likelier to, I think most likely Sanders outscores Goodwin. Like, I think that, there's probably a 80% chance. Like, I think Sanders probably outscores Goodwin 80% of the time. It's just Goodwin has the correlation with Geno that I think I'd be more inclined to go there. It kind of depends on the rest of your lineup. Like, if you already have DK and Lockett in that lineup, I would probably go to Sanders. I wouldn't throw Goodwin in there. If you don't already have two other receivers from the Seahawks, I would probably go Goodwin.
Okay, that makes sense. And my filler arc asks, just showed up, sorry, Jordan Mason, I believe he means, at Captain OK. Look, we're talking about very low probability outcome, like less than 1%, but he shows up as the optimal captain slightly more than people are expected to play him. Take that as you will. It's more of a largest of large field tournament play, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he shows up more than people use him, but we have project for a 0.2% ownership, 0.4% chance of being the optimal captain. So not a high likelihood play, but if you want to go there, just understand that it's not going to work out that often.
That makes sense. And then finally, Vinny C. Once again, thanks, man. Thanks to everyone for these super chats as they come in at the top of the hour here. How do you adjust top wide receivers and running backs against the top against running backs against top DFS against the position? I mean, I think he means defenses against the position.
I think he does too.
And I honestly think if you're using an optimizer, I hate to sound so like trite, but I think it sometimes is as simple as a thumbs down, and then you trust the projections to include a lot of that defensive information in there. You want to elaborate on that?
Sorry, I think I might be misunderstanding. So I think my understanding of what he's saying is, how do you account for bad matchups for the best players? Is that how you read it, or maybe?
Yeah. And for me, it would be literally as simple as going into Fantasy Cruncher and saying, "Hey, I think these projections may not consider how bad a matchup this is. I'll give it a thumbs down." But do you do something else or have a different process for it?
I mean, so I mean, generally my process is, our projections account for matchups. So I mean, if you think that you have a better idea than what our projections account for, then I would maybe give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. But generally my assumption is our projections are accounting for bad matchups. Like, that's included. Steve and Alex and these guys have, done years of research, and they have figured out which stats are predictive, which kinds of trends are predictive, and they have come up with these projections based on metrics that they've been tracking for years, that they've back tested. So I think that they're better at figuring out how to project players than I am. So I don't really adjust for projections for the defense so much as I project them to get closer to where I want to be in terms of ownership. So I look at the single game tool when I'm determining like what are the odds of success for this player in this bad matchup, because I think that the single game tool telling me the optimal percentage is more informative than just a raw projection. But generally I'm not changing the projection just because of the matchup, because it's already factored in the matchup.
Yeah. We know that the data and tools team behind the scenes knows who the opponent is, and so do the Vegas totals and everything that goes into how we build it out. So that's a great point. You guys, if you want to check out these tools and all the stats we're referencing, you could use the BetMGM promo that we talked about earlier. But also, if you're brand new to the Stokastic crew, we have an awesome offer right now. We're offering 3 days free of our entire NFL premium package. Again, you have to be a brand new user over at Stokastic, but you get access to everything that we have, everything that we own. That includes the lineup generator, the player compare tool, the boom bust tool, the top stacks tool, projection, ownerships, multiple slates. We can't give you Fantasy Cruncher, but you can add that on when you become a full member later. This is an awesome way to get into the action. A Thursday is the best time to do it because those 3 days cover you for all of the slates going on throughout the weekend. You know, you could get into the action, get those tools for the weekend, and by the time you're done with your weekend, your 3 days, you've earned enough to earn yourself a Stokastic Plus membership, maybe even a premium membership. We've seen it before. I literally saw it on Twitter this week. Someone earning a $2,700 profit on one of these signups. It happens, guys. It seriously does. So check it out today. We got a link for you in the video description. All right, man, we got to fly. We got wide receivers and tight ends to cover for Seattle, and then we got defenses and kickers on both sides, which, as usual, they're relevant. But look, it's Lockett, it's Metcalf, and then it's punt plays galore.
Yep, exactly right. So, I mean, Lockett and Metcalf, both, you know, we know who they are. They are the top receivers. Lockett has actually been extremely consistent all year. Like he has like one game all year where he has fewer than 10 fantasy points. I should look up what the actual number is, but I mean, he's just, I'll just leave it at that. He's been very consistent all year. He puts up stats, just gets PPR points. He's been scoring touchdowns. He's been great all year. And then Metcalf, you know, any given game, Metcalf can just completely go off and break the slate. So these guys look great. Obviously, once again, the downside is really tough matchup, one of the worst matchups they can possibly have. But even in a really tough matchup, I think, you know, Seattle can score some points. So one of these guys still pretty likely to have a very good game. Like both of those guys quite a bit. Marquise Goodwin being that wide receiver 3 for Seattle. I think that he's playable. I think that we have positive leverage on Goodwin in the captain spot, 1.1% projected ownership, 1.4% chance to be an optimal. A little bit of negative leverage in the util, 12.1% ownership, 8.9% chance to be an optimal, but still playable. I think that he is next in line behind Lockett and Metcalf. Of Lockett and Metcalf, I think I have a slight preference for Lockett coming in a little bit lower owned in the util. We've got, I don't know. We actually have positive leverage on both these guys, so I shouldn't even say that.
I think they both are good, to be honest.
They look, just looking at the tools, they look very similar. That's kind
Scary,
of my general impression of Lockett and Metcalf. Is like they're both studs. It's hard to differentiate. Like they're very different players clearly, but like it's hard for me to predict which of them is going to have success against different defenses. So I like them both quite a bit. They're both studs. Just a matter of who gets the ball, who gets the touchdowns this game, which obviously is kind of dumb to say as I'm saying it out loud. Everybody knows that. But yeah, they're both stud plays. And then probably Marquise Goodwin next up for Seattle. I don't think I'm playing any other Seattle receivers.
Noah Fant in your pool as well?
Yep, Noah Fant and Will Dissly, both in the pool for me. Both are, involved enough that I have some interest in them. I do not have the Seattle snap counts up, but so I'm saying, just reading my article, I see Noah Fant played at least 56% of snaps in each of the past 3 games. He's seen 9 targets in those games. Will Dissly has seen 8 targets in those games. He's 2,400, a little bit cheaper. So both certainly playable. They're going to have some opportunities, likely to see a few targets apiece. Dissly a little bit cheaper, $2,000 cheaper than Noah Fant. So a little bit easier to pay off that price tag, but I think both are, certainly viable. We've got some positive leverage on Dissly in the captain spot, 1.2% ownership, 1.5% chance to be an optimal. A little bit of negative leverage in the util, 11% ownership, 9% chance to be an optimal. And then Noah Fant, what do we have? Actually, negative leverage in both spots for Noah Fant, but still looks, incredibly playable. 1.6% ownership, 1.5% chance to be an optimal in the captain spot, 15% ownership, 13% chance to be an optimal in the util. Looks fine as well. Both of those guys in my player pool. And actually, I can throw out a third tight end, Colby Parkinson, I think is in play at 1,000. He's been, playing some snaps. We have limited options in this game of players who are not getting ownership, who are playable. I think that Colby Parkinson is a guy who is at least playable. He's not, my favorite play. Not my favorite plays going unowned in terms of all showdown slates, but in terms of this one, he's one of the better ones. He's played more than 30% of snaps in each of the past 2 games for the Seahawks. He's been targeted a total of 3 times in that span. So unlikely to get there on volume. It would probably be a touchdown or bust for Colby Parkinson, but he's seen enough that he's at least in play.
Yeah, that all makes sense to me. And ultimately with Metcalf and Lockett, they make up, in terms of targets and air yards, over 50%, in fact, 51.5% of the team's total passing offense over the last 8 weeks. And that's stayed the same all season long. Every single other player commands less than 9% of the team's total targets and air yards. As we said up top, they are punt plays. Not these kickers and defenses, though, especially on the San Francisco side. Both the kickers and defenses look fantastic. Why don't we break down these final four in the final 4 minutes of this Live Before Lock show? You have any favorites here? I'm sure you're playing plenty of all four, these two defenses and these two kickers.
Yeah, they're all very much playable. Off the top of my, reading my article, going back there, because I had, we have, now I got to scroll up even more. This was a long article. I'm trying to remember which one actually Robbie Gould leads the group in both projection and value. He is the leader of the pack. Both defenses fairly interesting, though. I mean, the Seahawks, not a great defense, but they're going up against a rookie quarterback. It seems more likely than usual that they're going to be able to have some success. And then the Niners, of course, I think you can play the Niners against anybody. Gino's only thrown like 8 interceptions this year, I believe, but 4 of them have come in the past 3 games. So I think that it's, I think the Niners defense is playable even at an inflated price tag.
I think you could even play them at captain. Like, there is risk of ruin for Seattle. I don't think it's the most likely outcome. I think they show up and I think they're competent, but that line's coming. That defense is no joke, especially up front. And Seattle's offensive line is not that fantastic. I do think that there's a chance that we get a lot of stalled drives for Seattle, which means Jason Myers could be in play, especially busy in the first half. We've got a positive leverage score with him as well. I mean, look, there's even a chance that Seattle wins this game outright. If you're looking at win probabilities, it's above 40% for Seattle. And so obviously you can have Jason Myers in your lineup, just like that super chat was talking about. These are always good options, especially in 2022. It feels like with these possible sludge fests every Thursday night. We're at 1 minute till lock, Neil. Any final words for the people, and let them know where they can find you?
Yeah, well, first I'm going to say I did just get my lineups in. I've got all my lineups in for both sites. So I know some people like to sweat that with me. Sometimes I fail to do that, but I got them in this one. Yeah, I mean, I think that we covered the slate fairly well. It should
final
be
score prediction.
Game. Final score prediction, I think it's going to be Niners 27, Seahawks 17.
Okay, I was going to say Niners 28, Seahawks 20. I dig it. Follow him at PlayerQDFS. He's got Showdown breakdown videos. He's got Showdown breakdown articles. And of course, he's right here. My name is Matt Savoca. Follow me at Draftaholic on Twitter. Thank you to producer Mike behind the glass. Follow him at AwesomeYo. Doing great stuff, great memes. No process tomorrow, no Engelman process. We'll be back, of course, but we've got NBA and NFL strategy shows at 9:45 a.m. and 1 p.m. NFL and NBA NHA shows at 3 and 3:30, and then the NBA Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock with Rinpack, Adam, Emac, and Greg. Tons of stuff in the sports world coming up this Friday. Oh, yeah, and high stakes tomorrow. Let's go, man.
Felix Castro, the reigning DraftKings Millie Maker winner from last year. Best ball Millie Maker winner from last year.
Cannot wait to tune in for that one. Yeah, definitely check that out. For Neil, for Mike, my name's Matt. Let's win some money, guys.